What up, players? It's Warboss Tay up in this mud. Today we continue Project First Founding as we tour the original 18 First Founding Legions in their current color scheme. Now, if you're following along for Project Pre-Heresy, then those are the pre-Heresy color schemes in the Forge World / early Mark armors, and we'll be doing those as the days pass. But for today, we're going to be looking at the current color scheme for painting a Warp Talon, or if you have them, a Chaos Raptor if you do them in the Night Lord's Legion. Now, many of you have seen my other Night Lord's Raptor video and would think like, yo Tay, why are you doing another Night Lord's tutorial? Well, the other one was for a regular Chaos Space Marine, and I thought that these guys are just so much more iconic to the Night Lord's fluff, swooping out, slicing things up, just being terrifying and mean and evil. So that's why I'm doing these guys today. Colors you're gonna need are Cantor Blue for the blue, Balthazar Gold for the gold. Oh no, that's Mornfang. They look so much alike. Balthazar Gold for the gold, Doom Bull Brown for the claws, Lead Belcher for the silver, Lead Belcher, Mephiston Red for the eyeballs, Corn Red for, what did I use Corn Red for? Nothing! Did I use anything else? You're going to need Abaddon Black for the under armor joints, and you are going to need Celestra Gray for the skull face paint. Finally, you are going to need Nuln Oil to wash all that stuff with. I think I showed that to you actually. No, I didn't. Nuln Oil, there we go. So thanks for watching, everybody. Write me some comments, let me know what you love about the Night Lord's Legion or what you hate about them, and I'd love to hear from you. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you in the next video. Alright, let's get started. Players. Here we've got our Warp Talon, and I'm going to use a color scheme that you can use for your Raptors as well, but I remember that I did a Raptors video when it was in metal, and I think it was one of the first tutorials I ever filmed, so I decided this time to go with this, also because this guy looks like, in my mind, the character Lucoriphus from the Black Library Adam Dembski Bowden books on the Night Lords. So we're gonna start with Cantor Blue while I keep rambling. The Night Lords, I have done bunch of things with them. If you're a new subscriber, you haven't seen my work before, I did a project with them where I did a month of building and painting and posting every single day a little bit something on them from summer last year, so go check that out if you haven't seen my Night Lords project yet. Also, I've done a couple of other videos on them. I did a fluff video called for my series Fluff Hunters, which was a while ago. Just kind of talks about them and leads you to the Wikipedia, or not the Wikipedia, but the Warhammer Wiki, 4D Wiki, and the Lexicanum pages. And yeah, I've always loved the idea of the Night Lords, and the first thing that stuck out to me, which I thought was just so awesome, was that their Primarch, Conrad Kurtz. For those of you who are new to the 40k hobby, Primarch means the father or the leader of their legion or army. His gene seed, his genetic material, is used to make all the other Space Marines that came after him, and all the Chaos Space Marines that they continue to make. He was pretty much, like, before he was rediscovered by the Emperor and brought back to the Imperium, he was like a psychopathic, murderous, homicidally insane version of Batman. he crash landed on a world. He saw how bad it was, and how the corrupt had control, and how gangs ran the streets of the lower hives and areas. And he said, as a boy, when he crash landed there, he had no family to take him in like the other Primarchs did, and he just kind of did what he had to do to restore order and, in his mind, do what he thought was right. And because he didn't have anyone to teach him right from wrong, he only had his instinctual, what was ingrained in him from when he was created by the Emperor. And so what he believed was right or wrong was kind of twisted and warped by the fact that he was on this world now that was just so bad and so terrible. And so he didn't have parents. He only had his own wits, and so he went on a little vigilante crusade. And remember, he's still a young kid when this is all happening, and he kind of did what he had to do to restore order. And once he was done flaying and hanging and eviscerating and crucifying and mounting his victims' remains up on various places as a warning to other criminals, all the other criminals took a hint, and all the drug lords and all the gang leaders and all the corrupt politicians, they all fell in line, or they were disposed of, just like Batman, except that where Batman had this rule where he wouldn't kill anybody, the Night Haunter was like the only way to get people to listen to you is through fear. And I am going to enforce this rule no matter what. And then the Emperor comes and sees him ruling over this little kingdom he's built, and it's a good rule, and there's no crime, and everybody lives in peace, but everybody is terrified. They live in peace because they're terrified, so they didn't really have freedom. And I thought that was the most interesting thing, where that the Night Haunter, Conrad Kurtz, nickname he called himself was the Night Haunter, he really believed that peace was more important, stability was more important than personal freedom. Because when you have freedom, he saw what kind of excesses you could end up indulging, and so he said, I don't want my people to have freedom or will of their own. I need to rule them, because when I came here, everybody kind of did what they wanted, and like, look how bad it was. Crime was through the roof. Everybody was terrified of going out because you could get killed at any moment. And the way that Aaron Dembski Bowden writes his villains is just so good. So good. He makes you see that they are villains, but they're villains for a reason. And while you may not like them, you can hate them and think they're terrible, terrible, terrible people, because they are. But you understand them more. It's not just rah, 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 kill, maim, burn, destroy, blood for the blood god. And that's, I like that. I like my villains with depth. And I like that it's a tragic story. Again, it's all about, to me, the most interesting things are the tragic stories. Balthazar Gold now, for the gold. You have characters that in any other situation, if the Night Lord, or if Conrad Kurtz had landed on, say, like an Imperial world, or a world that he could have found a loving family, or at least someone to take him in and teach him right from wrong, then he could have turned out completely different. Another thing that Conrad Kurtz was known for was his visions. He would have these visions of the future, most always bad, and they kind of drove him insane after a while. As a big part of his character was how he saw, when he first met the Emperor, if you look on Lexicanum and stuff, it talks about how when he first met the Emperor, and I think Fulgrim and Rogel Dorn were there, he he immediately could see the futures that would happen, how they would die, how they would turn, or maybe not how they would turn against the Emperor, but that terrible things would happen in the future. And I like that. It gives him another layer of tragedy that we can kind of sympathize or empathize with him, feel bad for him. And then once he's reunited with his legion, kind of teaches them how to, or he kind of brings his own flavor to his legion. They've already been fighting, the Great Crusade is going on, but he comes in and he's like, this is how we have to operate. We have to strike fear into our enemy so that we will be assured of victory. Like, I just came from painting the Imperial Fists, and they're, you know, very much honorable and into doing the right thing for humanity, for the Emperor's vision of peace in the universe. And the Night Lords were just all about how can we achieve victory as quickly as possible, and it always kind of started with the Night Lords. With when they would get to an Imperial planet, they would break down their communication systems. Like their combat doctrine, the way they would fight, their tactics is just so dirty and underhanded, because they come from a world where, you know, you have lots of gangs and crime. Most of them are like little more than thugs and petty criminals, and then the higher up you go, the more vicious and ruthless they become. And I think I said in my Night Lords project video, like, I imagine some of these guys to be like leaders of their gangs and their hives, or like mafioso type guys, like criminal masterminds. And they joined the Legion because they had to replenish the losses back before in the Great Crusade era, and now they're just totally evil and twisted. The great thing about Conrad Kurtz and the Night Lords is that I think it's mentioned, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you know anything else, but once or twice I've read it that Conrad Kurtz didn't care for his legion. I think the only other guy to not care about his legion is Angron. Like, he was reunited with them, and he didn't love them as his sons. He kind of saw them as he saw himself, like a tool to be used to achieve a goal, an objective. The objective was the Great Crusade, his Emperor's vision of a unified, great galactic imperium, and they were like the tools. There's this one interesting story, and I'm not sure where it's from, but it talks about how there's this one Night Lord warband, I think, that was able to get an imperial world, or a world that was non-compliant, which means one of the worlds that the Emperor was sent his legions to bring into compliance, either by coercion, diplomacy, or by invading and taking out its dictators and stuff, its rulers. But the Night Lords went to this planet, and it was like known that they brought the planet into compliance without firing a single shot, without killing anybody. And and the most interesting part is that nobody was allowed to talk about what happened. All they knew was that before, this planet was not compliant. It was saying, hey, forget you, Emperor man, we're gonna do our own thing. And then the Night Lords come, teleport onto the world, something happens, nobody dies though, and then the world is like, yeah, okay, we'll join the Imperium. Yeah, the Night Lords were that legion where you would hear that they were coming, and then everybody would be like, "Party's over, guys. We gotta shape up." Night Lords get here, and they see that we're messing around and we're not doing good by the Emperor. Then we are in for it. So I want to talk a little bit about Raptors now. In the Night Lords fluff, the Raptors were assault troops from the assault companies that were trained to use jump packs, and then they became, once the Horus Heresy happened, the Raptors became known as, the surviving Raptors became known as, the groups became known no longer as companies or squads. They didn't have a structure anymore, except they were known as cults, the Raptor cults, kind of like the Obliterator cults. And an interesting question that was been kind of debated over on the internet, because there's no real answer, is that did the Night Lords come up with the first Raptors? And if they did, then why did the name stick so that all Chaos armies use Raptors now? Kind of like Obliterators. Do you have Obliterators for different legions, or are Obliterators all created by, the Iron, or did the Iron Warriors create the first Obliterators and then kind of teach everybody else how to do it? Or are all Obliterators Iron Warriors? Kind of like the same thing with Raptors. Are there different Raptor cults for each legion? Like, do the World Eaters have their own Raptor cult, and Death Guard similarly, etc., etc., etc.? Or do the Raptors come from the Night Lords? Do they teach other people, spread the word and the teaching of the Raptor cults around, and so now other legions can do it? Like, it's kind of like the chicken and the egg theory. What came first, and what do you consider to be both a Raptor and those that use the name Raptors in the armies of the other legions currently in the present? So I've been looking and reading a lot about that online, and a theory that I kind of agree with is that the Night Lords were the first to use jump pack technology effectively. If they existed before, then other assault troopers used them, but they were the first ones to use them really effectively, and they were the ones that figured out how to tune their Voxcasters so that when their assault troopers come screaming out of the sky, they can literally be pumping like high-pitched, cringe-inducing screeches and screams from their Voxcasters in their helmets, and that would terrify their opponents as they come flying in and impaling them with their weapons and shooting them up and stuff. So if the Night Lords were the first to create these Raptor cults, then other people just kind of copied them, and I believe that either the Emperor or somebody, maybe Horus, probably Horus, the War Master, said like, "Hey Conrad, how's it going, buddy? How are the headaches coming?" Anyways, I wanted to talk to you about these jump pack guys, man. You are doing such great stuff with that. Why don't you go around and teach my boys how to do that, and teach some of these other legions what you're doing with their assault troops, because they're doing really, really great, brother. They're doing really good. Oh, also, we're gonna rebel against the Imperium, so you should put that in your calendar. Istvan 3. Be there or be square. I've been rambling for a long time now. Oh my goodness. One of the hobby hot tips, if you're a beginner, and even as veterans can remember it from time to time, is that it's okay to screw up. When you're starting out, I remember when I started out, I was painting orcs and goblins. I would paint them, and every time I would mess up any color. Doesn't matter which color it was, I would stop whatever I was painting and go back and fix the mistake. And then I realized you don't have to do that. We fix the mistakes after every step. That's much more effective. So, like if I get any gold on the blue armor, like I'm doing a lot in this step, then I just wait until I'm done painting all the gold and then I go back. So I'm painting the spikes in gold, they'll stick out more. And I think I'm also going to paint the claws in gold. So then you have this conundrum, right? Because Games Workshop had to, or wanted to make all these new models to sell money. So they said, let's get another jump troop that uses jump packs, but then make them different. So how do they make them different? Well, they don't give them the standard equipment like a Raptor squad. They're not like armed with weapons other than their claws. So they said, well, let's go with that direction. You don't know you're beautiful. And make these jump troops really adhere to this aesthetic of, you know, hunters and clawed fiends falling out of the sky. Now, the problem I have with this is that in Games Workshop's art and they're on the box and everything, the Warp Talons are painted as Night Lords, but Night Lords are known as not being prone to mutation. Their gene seed is very stable and secure. That doesn't stop it from happening. It's just that where other legions like the Thousand Suns would get mutated because their gene seed has a tendency to mutation, the Night Lords aren't susceptible to that. So the characteristics that define a Night Lord's marine are the super duper pale skin, and their eyes are like all black irises, which is pretty spooky, I guess, if you think about it. Whenever I think about Conrad Kurtz and the Night Lords, though, I think Batman in space. Just because of the Conrad Kurtz backstory. Well, I like also how they made Conrad Kurtz a name on Colonel Kurtz from Apocalypse Now, which is a play on that character from the novel Heart of Darkness. I think it suits him too. It suits Conrad Kurtz. Tragic figure. Oh man, I am messing all this up. It's alright. We'll fix it in the next step. Sorry if it's a little bit blurry, guys. I'm trying to get my hands on an autofocus camera, but yeah, sometimes it blurs and gets out of focus, no matter what I do. Okay, so I'll do a little bit more of this jump pack detail here. So Night Lord is one of my favorite legions. Glad we're doing this Legion first founding project to coincide with Project Pre-Heresy, painting up all the Legion color schemes and their present day looks. So one of the things that drive me to really like this character of Lycoraphus is that he is such a bad boy, and he's real interesting in that he's one of the Raptors that through time, exposure in the warp, through his just through his inherent evilness, he has slowly started to mutate. And even though the Night Lord's gene is pretty stable and safe from mutation, he has started to become more and more bird-like. Along with his squad, they're called the Bleeding Eyes because it looks like their eyes are leaking blood or some kind of fluid onto their helmets. Nobody knows if that's like a paint job or if that's like a real, honest-to-goodness mutation, but I'm going to try and see if I can replicate that. Okay. So now we're going to go back with Cantor Blue, and we are going to touch up the areas of the armor that have gold on them. Now the touch-up phase happens right before you apply a shade or a wash. It's meant so that you can double-check each of the areas before you have to tone it down, so that you know if you missed anything, like, oh, these plates on this guy's butt, these butt plates, I messed them up. I didn't mess it up, I just didn't paint anything there. There you go. So like I said in my video, I watched The Hobbit last night. I had a great time. What a great movie. I haven't felt like a kid like that in such a long time, if ever. I was just like a little kid in my chair, just squealing and having a grand time. Now I was looking online at all of the products for the Escape from Goblin Town, and it comes with a little band of dwarves in it, but I was like, I don't remember half of these guys. I don't even remember seeing them like in the background. Oh, and how many of you noticed in the scene where the dwarves are fighting against the orcs? How many of you have noticed that one of the dwarves was a dwarf berserker? He had like a mohawk, he had like tattoos on his head. It wasn't an orange mohawk, but I saw it and I was like, Slayer. super stoked. Okay, a little bit more, then we'll be done with the first step. I wonder how I'm gonna paint the claws. I hadn't really thought of that. I'm gonna look online for some inspiration. Right. Okay, players, so I did a little research online and I found some things that I wanted to change looking at the Games Workshop version of their Warp Talon here. They didn't paint this part gold, so I just painted back over with Cantor blue. And is there anything else? Oh yeah, we have to go and fix the claws. The claws do not look as they do on the Games Workshop website, so we're going to try and be a little bit more accurate to that. We're going to do that with Doom Bull Brown. There's one change from the Games Workshop website of the Warp Talons model, and that's we're not going to do the golden trim on this guy's face plate on his helmet, because Night Lords, for one, they like to have imagery and paint skull motifs onto the front of their helmet, and I don't know why they didn't do it for this model, but for another thing, because we're going to try and do the bleeding eyes effect. Now, I don't know, personally, I would do my lightning claws technique here, but just to try something new, I'm going to do this one as the Games Workshop version has it. Just kind of like this reddish glow on the lightning claws here with silver dry brushing on the edges. We'll see how that goes. Alright, so that's the end of that. I'll do a little bit more before we finish this tutorial. I'm going to start with... we're going to take some Celestra Gray, and now we're going to paint in the skull motif on the front of the mask. So I'm gonna just kind of follow the outline of the trimming here on the mask. And this is going to be hard because this guy has one of these Mark V helmets, so it's not going to look the same as some of my other Night Lords models, but it'll still look pretty cool, I think. So I just went down all the way to the front of the snout, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to let that dry a second, and then we'll come back with the blue and put some fangs in. So next, why don't we go to Leadbelcher and do the silver bits. We're going to start with the harness for his jump pack. Man, Lucorifus was such a cool character in the Night Lords novels. I was thinking while the last couple clips were uploading to my computer about how much joy he and his squad, the Bleeding Eyes, take in just sowing terror and discord and being able to hunt like creatures of prey, terrorizing their victims. So cool. Alright, there we go. Let's just fix this mask, huh? We're gonna take Cantor Blue and just make jagged, like, fangs, I guess you could say, here on the bottom. You can't really see it with this Mark V helmet. Basically covering back up, and then what I'll do is I'll take some Celestia Gray and elongate the two ends to look like fangs on the side. Take a little bit more silver now from the Leadbelcher and paint in the turbines here on the back. Okay, so that's that. I think that was it. Something you're going to want to do also is take some black paint, like Chaos Black or Abaddon Black, and paint in the black Under Armour. Oh no, it's my black paint. Oh my god. Oh, with all this moving around, I don't know where my black paint is. So, now I'll find it. We're just going to be hitting... I'll take some... Igor. Yes, master. Have you seen any of my black paint? I've got some lovely Abaddon black for you here, master. I suppose. Alright, so you're going to be taking your paint and painting in all of this Under Armour sections between the joints right here by the butt. What I also like to do is paint under here, this butt plate area, so that it gives the illusion that the armor isn't like scooping down underneath it like a little G-string or something like that. Did somebody say G-string? Lewis. Yes, Warboss Tay. What are you doing here? Whoa. I thought I'd stop by and see how all the gang is doing. Besides, it's too early to go to the clubs. Lewis, are you still trying to pick up hot women at the clubs? Every day of my life, player. Gross. Okay, so it's only a little bit more to do, really, and then we'll hit this baby up with some washes and let it dry and come back for part 2 of how to paint a Night Lord's Raptor / Warp Talon. How you doing? One of them chaosy spiky marines. That's right, Lewis. Well, don't let Commissar Bain see you. He finds these spores extra heretical. He's liable to be quite angry with you, Warboss Tay. Corn red for any wires or tubing. Like here. In fact, I'm not sure about this. I have to double check. Let's double check the example. I've always used red for my wires. Ah, it's black. It's black, Lewis. They're using black. Alright, Abaddon black. I say, you do what makes you happy, Warboss. That's the motto I live by. Do what makes me happy. Okay, so we're just about done. I'm gonna add little fangs now on the side. Yeah, you don't really see it as much as in other Mark helmets, but it's fine. Cool. That's still cool. Alright, oh, silver here for the turbine thruster parts. And then what you guys are going to do is, as soon as this is dry, we are going to shade it with known oil. This whole model is going to get a nice liberal coating of it. So remember, with any wash, you just want to make sure that it doesn't pool anywhere where it's gonna dry. These washes leave the worst watermarks. And I'm using, for my project Red Fleet, I'm using the old Badaba Black. And I forgot just how different the two are. The old washes to the new shades when they dry. Known oil has a very shiny, glossy, oily finish, whereas Badaba Black did not. Say it again, master. No. Just for funsies, we are going to do the eyes. Give this guy some eyeballs with Mephiston Red. Yeah. More Talons! Alright, so I'm back, and this last step we are going to take our known oil. Oh, where did I put it? It was right here. Known. Ah! And we are going to wash this whole entire model with it. So you want a nice big brush. Do I have any? Did I take them all over to the lady boss's house? There we go. I got one right here. Should do it. Should do the job, as Warren would say. It's a nice jobby right over here. Terrible Warren impression. So what kind of person plays the Night Lords? Well, if you want an army that, fluff-wise, theme-wise, is all about sowing terror and discord among the enemies and striking fast, then the Night Lords are the ones for you. I also think they have the most interesting stories, and this has been debated a lot. A lot of people don't really care for the books. I think they're a little bit too what's the word? Just evil for evil's sake. The thing I like about them, though, is that they are evil because they are evil Chaos Marines, but they're not chaos evil. They don't, like I said, they don't rah blood for the blood god and all that. They're really just fighting because it's all they know. It's all they've ever knew how to do, and to them, the Imperium of Man is betrayed them and did them wrong, and their Primarch, and so they're all just fighting to survive, and they're like rabid dogs, I think, where they're just out there and they're like, we're strong enough to take what we want, so why shouldn't we? It's just really, thematically, it's really cool. They've been used for so long as a tool by the Emperor, his selecting them to sow terror and discord among his enemies, and that's like all they've been used as. And then when the Emperor had no more use for them, then he kind of cut them free. When this is the one of the most popular stories in Night Lord's Fluff is when their Primarch Conrad Kurtz went and blew up his home planet of Nostromo, killed everybody there because he was enraged at the way that they had reverted to their old criminal ways after he had left to go fight the Great Crusade of Humanity. He came back and he saw that they had reverted to their old ways and become all corrupt and decadent, and he could not stand it. It put him into a rage, and he was like, "What? Look what happens when I leave you alone. I can't trust you to rule yourselves. Mankind is forever doomed to repeat its mistakes." And I think that was like the beginning of the end for him. And I can't wait to see his fluff and his motivations explained further. But yeah, to say that, you know, this world that you had turned good and you had turned to the light of order and justice, not necessarily the order of the emperor, but to law, and to take away all the crime on the planet just to see it all turn back. To know that drove him crazy, like that's just so awesome. So tragic. Oh, really cool. So I'm gonna let it dry here. We're gonna come back in a little while and get on to the highlights, but I really, really love the Night Lords. If you haven't been able to tell yet, they're definitely among my favorite legions. I enjoy painting them. I hope you're having fun painting them too, or at least hanging out with me and painting with me and watching these videos. The shades do a pretty decent job of darkening the tones of the base coats. You just don't want them to be too thick or to pool in these, especially these smaller areas like here in the wings, down here in the folds of the armor. You don't want it to form really big, thick pools, because it's just going to make it harder for you when you're highlighting them up if they have water streaks. So just be careful, and hope you're all enjoying this project First Founding. We're trucking along. This is the Night Lord's Legion, and I don't even have any idea who's next, but looking forward to getting this guy done and moving along. Luke Corfis, caw 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 caw.